My name is Tony Parker, and this is my story of how I was lynched by the law.
Choices, choices, make good choices, choices, consequences, choices, choices, make good choices, choices, consequences, choices, choices, make good choices, choices, consequences, choices, choices, make good choices, choices. It's your loss, you can be the boss. 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 It's your loss, you can be the boss.
I was born in Gaston County, Florida. I was raised in the city of Quincy, and I even attended the public school system there in Gaston County. Gaston County is a small county, close-knit community. Everybody pretty much know everyone in Gaston County. There's no doubt about that. You know, growing up in Quincy, my mom instilled in me, and at that time I only had one brother and one sister. My other siblings came along later. Mom always told us to work hard, be honest, and everything would turn out good for you. Mom really believed in respect, so there was a large degree of teaching on respect. Not just those in the household with us. Mom wanted you to respect everybody in the community, especially those people that were older. You worked hard, you was honest, and you respect everyone. And because you was able to respect everyone, I think in the same term, people gave my mom and gave us, the kids, that respect back. And although we grew up in the projects, we didn't have a large problem like some parents have with their children. Everybody knew that when the lights came on at 7 o'clock or whatever time, then everybody knew Miss Lillian's children gonna be back home, because she gonna stand on the porch in the projects and say, Tony, or she called me, Anky, Joyce, Red. Everybody in the projects knew them kids finna go back in the house. It was fun. Well, Quincy is still small, and growing up in Quincy meant that everybody knew you, knew your parents, your mother. And if you did something wrong across town, because it was so small, everybody knew, and they were going to tell your mother. They helped raise you in a sense, because I still remember, although growing up in the projects, I remember Mama Dot, who was a lady that lived next door to us that was like a mother. I remember Miss Earlene, who lived downstairs beneath us. So either way you go, you were covered. They knew, and they looked out for you just as your mother would. And you respected them like they were your mother. If Mama Dot said do something, you did it. If Miss Earlene said do something, you did it. And you didn't do it with your mouth stuck out or back talking. That was Quincy. That's the way Quincy is. Nowadays, things have changed. There's a new generation on the scene. But when I grew up in the Gaston Arms apartments, that's the way it was. I do remember growing up in the projects and experiencing some racism among the city police, some of the white city police officers that would come through the projects and come here, boy, and ask you questions. Who in here selling marijuana? Who in here selling dope, he would always say. That investigator, of course, can't remember his name, but that was a popular thing. Always referring to older black men as boys. Boys. And if you're walking on the side of town where in a white community, sometimes that same police investigator, boy, what you doing in here? What you doing over here? Why are you here? All right, you better be finding your way back across. And that's across Highway 90. Highway 90 seems to be a separating point for the black community and the white community for most part. And if you were caught on the opposite side of Highway 90 in the white neighborhood, that investigator, if he run across you, he want to know what you're doing there. You better have a lawnmower in your hand or something. You know, these experiences had, I would say, a renowned effect on me because even now, I still remember my first encounter with racism, and it helped shape me in a sense that although my mom said every white person is not hateful and every black person is not full of love, I still remember that investigator. I still remember that officer. And that officer also, I said, if I ever become a police officer, I'm going to make sure I don't do people that way. I'm going to make sure I treat people fairly, regardless of their race. And there were a lot of friends that I grew up with in the projects that experienced the same. And I've watched some of them be arrested by law enforcement officers in a very aggressive manner for simple things. Simple things. Well, growing up in Quincy, in the projects, most of the guys in the projects played sports. Now, academically, in school, I would say I probably average. I was average in high school. I attended public school system, elementary school, Stewart Street Elementary School, Quincy Middle School, Carter Pammore Junior High School, then James A. Shanks High School, class of 1983, in which I graduated. Average student all the way through, but did play sports. In the projects, we played a lot of baseball. That was my sport. Although I played basketball and football, baseball was a thing for me. I think I was an outstanding baseball player. Of course, we have to let others weigh in on that. But I enjoyed baseball. I enjoyed baseball because I was the boy from the projects along with Drew, Greg, and some more guys from the neighborhoods where we grew up playing hard in sports, being great competitors. Well, growing up in the projects, my mom was working 2 jobs, and a lot of times in the afternoon, mom would be from one job to another. And we always had mentors in the project, such as Mama Dot, who lived right next door to our apartment, or Miss Erlene, who lived right beneath our apartment. And they kept us on the straight and narrow. Not just me and my family, but everyone on that block. Everybody knew Mama Dot. Everybody knew Miss Erlene. So like kids do, sometimes you fight. You get in a fight, and Miss Erlene see you or Mama Dot see you, they're going to tell you, come here. And both would have to come to her or them, and they would correct them. They would be very harsh in their correction. They would give you speeches about people fighting and why you shouldn't be fighting each other. They would always promote love and working together. You're young, you got a bright future. Don't mess it up now. Mama Dot and Miss Erlene are 2 ladies that I have very, very much love for even today. Yeah, we looked up to Mama Dot and Miss Erlene, but there were also other men. There were Paul, there were Benny Preche, there were Sonny. These are the men that you looked up to. My stepdad, who was in and out, Dilla. We looked up to these men because these were the men that helped guide us. They would pull us to the side sometime and tell us, look here, you don't treat no woman like that. And they give you speeches on how to treat young girls, your girlfriends. They tell you the things to do to make the girl really like you more. But they would also warn you about making poor choices that could result in you losing that girl, being that you're from the projects. They would tell you about how everybody going to be against you. It's going to be hard for you, but you can make it if you stick to your guns and you work hard. You be honest. You can get it done. In high school, we had teachers that definitely mentored me, I know for certain. Won't forget Mr. Carl Daniels. Won't forget Miss Betty Ponder. Won't forget Miss Campbell, Miss Black, Miss Thomas. These were teachers that stayed on you, not just during high school, but even in the community. If they run across you, you're doing something good, they acknowledge it. If you're about to get into something mischievous, they corrected you and warned you. These are the type teachers that their profession went even into the community, and they're loved, and they made a big difference in the Gaston County community. Well, law enforcement is something that was dear to my heart, and let me tell you how I really got a great interest in law enforcement. Sheriff Woodham would come into the projects and he would pick up Miss Lula Mae. Miss Lula Mae was a female correctional officer. The sheriff himself would drive her to the jail to perform her duties as a correctional officer. And sometime while he's sitting out there waiting for her to come downstairs from the projects, I would talk to him. I would talk to him about law enforcement. And he told me, Tony, you're pretty smart. He said, listen, if you want a job as a deputy, you finish high school first. And when you finish high school, you come and see me, and I'll get you a job. Well, high school was fun, some years off, and I finished high school in 1883. And after finishing high school, I decided first I wanted to go into the military. And I got a chance to go and be trained in military U.S. Army, Fort Dix, New Jersey. And it was good training. I really intended to perhaps stay. But they found out I had ulcers, and I was discharged, stomach ulcers, and I was discharged from the military. Once I was discharged from the United States Army, Fort Dix, New Jersey, I returned back to Gaston County. And I remembered Sheriff Woodham. I remembered his promise. And I remember him telling me, when you finish high school, come and see me. I got a job for you. I'll make you a deputy. So I returned to Gaston County, went by the sheriff's department that was located on Crawford Street in a white house, like a building, a white house. And I went into the office and talked to him, and he remembered. No problem, Tony. What I want you to do first is go out to the Lively Law Enforcement Academy, get an application, fill it out, bring it back to me, let me look over it, and then I'll sponsor you to go to that academy. And he did just that, just like he said. I got in the academy, Law Enforcement Training Academy. I think it was 2 other blacks in there, myself, and I know at least 1 female. We were in there. Lively Law Enforcement Academy, basic recruit training. And one of the things I remember about Lively Law Enforcement Academy, now let me just tell you, I received a lot of great training that prepared me for a career in law enforcement, prepared me to perform the duties as a law enforcement officer. But I also remember the racism in the classroom. I remember this one class we had, the outside instructor walked in, had a lot of Caucasians, male and female, in the class. And I remember him saying, so you guys got a pretty large class here today. Even got 1 or 2 monkeys here. And I heard some people laughing in the back. I looked back, and the girl sitting next to me, we kind of kicked each other, saying, did you hear that? See, I heard it too, but we're going to be calm. And what we want to do is get through this training. Get through it, and we can make a difference once we're out of here. And that's what we did. We perhaps didn't even mention it to the academy commander. We just stayed quiet. But every student in that class heard it. Know it to be a fact. But I was determined, and I made a conscious choice. We're going to make it through this, in spite of the racism. Because there were not many black law enforcement officers, period. And certainly in that class, there was only 2. And we wanted to succeed. So we let it slide under the rug. That was an encounter, my first encounter, experiencing racism in law enforcement while being trained to become a police officer. Well, after we graduated from the academy, Lively Law Enforcement Academy, I returned to the Gaston County Sheriff's Office, received my uniform, received my badge, and started working, first of all, in the jail. I worked as a corrections officer at the Gaston Sheriff's Office for maybe 6 months, but definitely less than a year. The jail was full of young black men. Probation violation, shoplifting, minor stuff. And I kept noticing none of these guys were committing violent crimes, and they were all being sent to the Department of Corrections. Time after time again. And remember, Quincy is small. Gaston County is small. So I knew most of these guys. Some of them was a little older. I kept trying to figure out what in the world is going on. But it didn't dawn on me at that point that there were two faces in the criminal justice system. I didn't see it. All I saw was a good guy and a bad guy. And perhaps these guys are in jail, so they must be bad guys. That's what I remember from training. That's what I remember as a corrections officer. But I also knew from my training with my mom, treat everybody fair. Be respectful. Treat everybody with the same degree of love that you want your brothers and sisters to be treated with. So I was nice to all the guys that were incarcerated there. Treated them with great dignity. Some of them I could remember their faces. I remember their situations even today. My premise was, you're in jail, and it's not my job to punish you while you're in jail. It's my job to keep you safe and make you a more productive person so that when you're released, either from the county jail or from the Department of Corrections, you will be a better person. That was my job. That's how, through the lenses of my eyes in law enforcement, that was my duty. And I fulfilled my duty as a corrections officer. One of the things I remember about Sheriff Wooderman and many conversations we would have as he waited for Miss Lulame to return downstairs and get in the car and he'd drive off to work is he always talked about his career as a trooper. He said he was a former state trooper. And he said, Tony, it gets no better than becoming a Florida state trooper. So after working for the Sheriff's Department for maybe a year, I decided to embark upon a career with the Florida Highway Patrol. I filled out my application and waited for the recruiter to contact me. And in the meantime, while waiting, he wanted me to become a auxiliary trooper, but I wanted to become a permanent party trooper, man. I want the whole deal. Well, the call came through and I ended up being accepted in the Florida Highway Patrol Academy. Once I arrived at the academy, I went with a local friend, a classmate of mine, Rodney Moore. Rodney Moore and I attended the Florida Highway Patrol Academy together as partners, as friends. We're going to get it done. We made it through all the challenging courses at the Highway Patrol, the criminal law section, the search and seizure section, the firearms section. These were all challenging courses. If you're going to fail at the academy, it's going to be one of these courses. We did well. And we graduated from the Highway Patrol Academy in 1986 and were sent to South Florida. I was sent down to Naples, Florida as my first duty assignment, Collier County. Collier County was a very well-to-do, wealthy area. Not too many African Americans, and certainly, I think in the history, they may have had one or two black troopers. Well, I would come in and be number 3. While at Naples, I wrote a lot of tickets on DUI arrests, equipment violations. And one day, while traveling on I-75 northbound, I observed an accident where a vehicle had overturned. And I see the people on the side of the highway waving me down, hey trooper, I'm going north. The accident is southbound. So I cross the median, go over, activate my blue lights, only to see a vehicle turned over on the lower part of the shoulder, and everybody beckoning for me, come. I see a body partially ejected from the vehicle. Well, without thinking, remembering my training, all the things Woodham told me, all the things I learned in the academy, I go down, rush to the guy in the vehicle, solicit the help some other guys standing along the shoulder, and we remove the vehicle off this man. And I pulled his body slowly from under the vehicle and noticed that his fingernail beds was purple. His face was purple. He was a Caucasian guy, so it was easy to see the discoloration. Immediately from the CPR training inside of the academy, FHP Academy, I knew he wasn't getting breath. I still remember the ABCs: airway, breathing, circulational control. So I opened his airway and began to perform CPR. As a result of performing CPR, this man's life was saved. He's living today as a result of me providing CPR for him. And in the process of administering CPR, there was a nurse that assisted me that was from, I think, Tampa General Hospital. She helped because it's hard doing the chest compressions and the ambulances is coming, but it takes so long. I think I began to sweat. Well, as a result of saving his life and all the multiple arrests for DUI and the drug arrest, I was nominated for Florida State Trooper of the Year. Once I was crowned as Florida Highway Patrol Trooper of the Year, some of the guys start saying, "Oh, you're the golden boy, you're the golden boy. You can't do nothing wrong. You're going to promote up. You're going to do real good." The golden boy gets what he wants. And in a sense, during that time, I wanted to transfer to Fort Lauderdale. I got it. I wanted to become my own station commander. If I had not gone back to Quincy, I would have gotten it. I wanted to start shooting commercials and for seatbelts, and I got everything that I wanted. I got it. Why? Because I was the golden boy with FHP. And for many of them, they had never been working around a person that had been selected as Trooper of the Year. Being Trooper of the Year brings status to the troopers that you're working around. Not that you're better than them, not that you know more than them. You just happen to be the one crowned as Trooper of the Year. And for most troopers, that's accepted. However, just like anything else, you're going to have your haters. Haters are everywhere. You can't get away from them. So you learn to deal with the haters. Even in law enforcement, there are haters. And once I got Trooper of the Year, things opened up for me that normally would not have opened. Certainly wouldn't have got the transfer. Certainly would not have been on my way so fast to becoming station commander, moving up the ranks. I got that name from the troopers, by the troopers, and for the troopers. And I benefited tremendously from it. Once being selected as Florida State Trooper of the Year, I remember at a ceremony down in Fort Lauderdale where one of the commanders of one of the big guys from headquarters asked me, he said, "Tony, what do you want to do now that you're Trooper of the Year?" I told him, well, I'm currently stationed in Naples and I want to transfer over to Fort Lauderdale. And I want to one day become my own station commander. He said, okay. And within 30 days, I was transferred from Naples, Florida, Troop F, over to Fort Lauderdale. And I was on my way. While at Fort Lauderdale, everybody accepted me great. They was happy to have the Troop of the Year with them at that location. I got a chance to work some of the NFL games down at Miami. Got a chance to work some of internal affairs. So it was going good. The career was taking off. And then one day, I got a phone call. And that phone call was from the sheriff or someone in the department telling me, hey, Tony, sheriff wants you to come back up to Quincy. I said, Quincy? I said, yeah, I need some help up here. I said, okay, well, let me talk to my wife about it. And I ended up talking to the sheriff. And we discussed some things as to what was being offered and what was on the table. And I accepted the job after I talked to my wife. She wanted to move back home anyway, so we ended up accepting the position, moving back to Quincy, being assigned to the school resource officer program and being stationed at one of the elementary schools in the county or middle schools. Now, while at the middle school, all I know is I'm coming back to be a resource officer. It's going to be fun. I'm working with kids. It was good. I met some of the guys at the sheriff's office that was working narcotics. And while in the school, I began to hear a lot of the students complain about corruption and the police taking their drugs and taking drugs from people in the community they had heard, and beating people and selling the drugs, and police officers actually using drugs. So, well, that can't be true. And I continued my duties as a resource officer. And then one day, while at a basketball game up at the high school, I noticed one of the guys that were popular in the neighborhood that I learned to become, he was a drug dealer. So I eased up to him and tried to get some information from him, but he was smart enough to know, I was the police. That guy later on ended up becoming a good informant, giving information, but the information that he was giving was not on himself, but he was giving information on his competitors. And as a result of giving information on his competitors, arrests, to my knowledge, were being made because I turned the information over to the narcotics officer. Being back in Quincy was challenging, was different. Although Sheriff's Department agreed to match the salary, once school ended and the summer approached, I was assigned to the narcotics division. They wanted me to start working undercover, selling drugs. I had no experience in working drugs, so okay, if that's what the sheriff wants, then we're going to make a difference in the community, okay. I had no idea what was going on. I do remember the rumors. I do remember hearing the students complain at the high school and the middle school. But I didn't believe it. Now school is out for the summer, and you're asking me to work narcotics. I would look for the sheriff, but he's so busy I couldn't really pin him down like I wanted to. Hey, narcotics? But ended up being assigned there, and I worked undercover. Did some control buys over in some neighboring counties. Bought some stolen property at one of the places. All undercover. And all of a sudden, no, we want you back in drugs. So, okay. So I go back and start working drugs, knowing who the dealers are in the county because the narcotics officer have already identified them. I would go to a place called Chattahoochee and set up, do some control buys at a hotel there right before the river. I'm still not feeling funny. Something is not right. I just didn't know what. Something is not right. So every time I would talk to the sheriff, he would tell me, oh, don't worry about it, Tony, I got you. Everything is good. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. But every time I go talk to the sheriff, I'm not talking about the narcotics officer. I'm talking about sheriff, the one I trusted, Sheriff W.A. Woodham. This man was an icon. This was my hero. This was a great guy in law enforcement. He says, I got it. Don't worry about it. You okay? And I believed it. And I continued to participate in the narcotics division, having no idea at all what was going on. Those ghost stories were real.
Choices, make good choices, consequences. Choices, make good choices, consequences. Choices, make good choices, consequences. Choices, make good choices, Word. It's It's your loss. You can be the boss. 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 Make good choices. Why? Make good choices. Why? Because it costs. No lie. Because it costs. No lie. Choices.